Well, here's my question for you, Don, because when you were talking about the report and the cities that really made it, to me, it sounded like the business principles that any successful business would make. That would be, you said they are unique. So in my brain, that means you've got to have a competitive advantage. You say they're impactful. That means vision to me. And you said they have to say, is it feasible? To me, that means do you have the capacity and resources to support your vision? Sounds like these cities are running themselves like businesses. Now, how do you take a culture of a city where there's no board of directors and you can't mandate residents to be employees and make them do stuff? How do you get a business mentality for success ingrained in the community?
I would probably prefer not to use the term of business to describe it. I prefer to talk about a city, how it flourishes.
Okay, business is like
the basis of what flourishing looks like.
Okay.
And so we can look in terms of flourishing of a city. You know, the Greeks talked about that a long time ago. It said the good, true, and the beauty, and justice and plenty is what we require for a city to flourish. Today we call that social capital, intellectual capital, aesthetic capital, political capital, and economic capital. So for a city to flourish, all those capitals are interwoven, they're all interconnected together. And you've got to have folks, like some of the folks here, who are really deeply invested in specific areas of those capital for enhancing those. They also have to interact with each other. I mean, it's clear, there's lots of studies that show, for instance, economic capital flourishes best where there's serious social capital. High levels of trust exist, and therefore transactions have less litigation to them. Additionally, intellectual capital feeds political capital, and political capital, when it's stable, also enhances the growth of organizations. So all of those have to be worked on. My belief is at this particular point in time, the most important point for us is an economic driver, because economic capital is critical to the future of where we're going to go. And in reality, we've been living off the wealth creation of a previous generation. We've consumed the wealth, enormous wealth that was created here. You kind of look and you can feel it, and you say that wealth was not recreated. And so, you know, wealth is created really only in a couple ways at a city level. One, it's imported and left here. Or secondly, you export a product or service and the profits retained behind. So for us to look at and say, how do we import wealth here? Well, we would, you can have an event that comes here, people leave the money behind, right? They leave and they leave money with us. You can also get government grants, that's called NIH grants. For instance, Wake Forest Medical has $200 million that was left here. The stimulus package is very important right now for Winston-Salem, get as much money as we can out of that. And individuals who invest in companies and their wealth grows here, they invest again. But the most important way for cities to grow is to develop something that is exported out. Because if not, what we do is just exchange money. You know, you buy a car from me, I go to your restaurant, I buy clothes, I buy soul. Us, we just move money around. If you really want to create wealth, you've got to import wealth or export something and profit retained. And for that, you've got to create jobs. You've got to grow companies. And so I had a chance to interview Egbert Davis before he died. Some of y'all know Egbert died in 96, 97, I think it was. So Egbert, what was it like 75 years ago? I don't want to be nostalgic about the past and talk about that as a golden era. But one thing he did talk about was the city was committed to growing companies. People helped each other out. It was a more personal era, so you could do that better. Then he gave example after example. When he started off with a little trouble, needed money, needed help with that, somebody gave him money, he stepped in like that. One time he got a call from the president of Wachovia Bank, said, I understand you have a little short of money, you need some help here. So that kind of way to say, how do we capture that spirit of the city? To say, what would it mean to be committed to saying we're about growing companies, and growing companies that can create wealth, that everyone prospers. Manufacturing is unlikely to ever replicate that. Manufacturing creates 4.5 indirect jobs per job. What that means is all the way down through the entire system, everybody gets a job in manufacturing jobs growth. Medical jobs, for instance, are the next heaviest today. They're almost 3 to 1. It comes out of the life science world. That means they go all the way through the system. Retail jobs don't create the same kind of throughput. So part of us is saying, not only do we think about this at what we'll call the top level, all the way through the system, where do we invest as a community that can create the most jobs for our city?
And the answer is?
Well, it'd be inappropriate for me to talk about it quite yet, honestly. She's before, she's trying hard. And I always say that I dislike being in that place, but there's some very confidential documents that are being signed and worked through right now. I bet you can imagine it didn't take genius to kind of figure out where's significant electoral capital we have, how can we bring opportunities to bear that many times have gone outside of our community, because we hadn't had the venture capital here to invest in those. So, you know, some of you know, like Lou Argenta's company that has the moon back. So they're now a company that takes his licenses agreement is now worth over $1 billion in Texas. It could have been here, but we didn't have the capital at the time and the ability to keep it here.
Yeah. What are your thoughts as you hear this conversation about the economic drivers and the direction the city needs to go here? What do you think?
I'm thinking that I just want everybody part of that. That I want everybody to have an opportunity to be part of it. And I think even with some jobs, you know, I look at jobs, or if I'm coaching young people and I see a job description, and it talks about, you know, a bachelor's degree needed and a master's degree preferred, but then you actually see what's the tasks they're asked to do. Anyone that's a good thinking person could be trained to do that work and do it well and flourish. So I would like us to bring in companies that are willing to challenge some of the conventional rubrics of what are the necessary prerequisites to be a successful employee in those environments.
So, Tanya, what is the role of the Arts Council and the arts community when we talk about ways to make an impact and ways to increase the economic base of the community?
Well, there are the things that I've mentioned in terms of what we're doing now, and in terms of employing people and generating revenue from the events that we have going on here, and then also the events that we bring into town. As Don Flo mentioned, one way to generate the economy in the local community is to bring events to town. So, for example, I hope many of y'all were able to attend the National Black Theater Festival, that was here earlier this year. That event brings 60,000 to 70,000 people to the town every other year. I don't know what the numbers are for the River Run Film Festival, but it's an impressive amount. And so we're doing more things like that. And I think the percentage in terms of, I mentioned that the hotels and retail options and restaurants generate $48 million from the patrons who go to the events. Something like 48% of that is from people who are coming from out of town. So that's one way that we're generating income, is by having quality events, things like the festivals. We're getting ready to have in the next couple of years a ballet festival or a choreographer ballet festival. Big festivals like that bring in a lot of people, but then also doing sort of the more everyday or every weekend events where we're packaging programs together on the weekend and having multiple events so that people would want to come and spend the weekend here in Winston-Salem and reserve a hotel room and go out to dinner and shop at Michael's shop downtown and spend the week. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, well, you know, we like to refer to ourselves as the city of the arts. Do all of the various components walk the walk, or is it a struggle?
You know, it's always a struggle because we can always do better than we currently are doing. There's an initiative underway where we're rebranding the city's logo. We're the City of Arts and Innovation, and that's because of recognition of the fact that it's not just the traditional arts of the symphony and the opera and painting, but it's also the entire creative economy. You know, it's what Deborah and her folks are doing over at Target Step. It's what the folks are doing, you know, elsewhere in the biochemical or the biotechnology businesses downtown. It's the graphics design. It's the whole creative economy, and we're all working together to bring the clusters of the creative industries and the creative people to Winston, bringing them to Winston, getting them to stay here, and then bringing up the river for everybody else.
Once again, I want to encourage you to come to the mic. So if you'll say your name, please.